I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the Doomsday couple, Lori and Chad Daybell. It's a series of crimes unlike any I've ever covered, blanketed by an alleged belief in God. This couple systematically committed a series of family murders and then ran off to Hawaii with a bag of money. Here's the story.
Chad Daybell was the leader of a small doomsday cult. He created a following after publishing a series of books about his near-death experiences. He would often attend prepper conventions of people preparing for the end times. He was a Mormon who was kicked out of the church because of his extreme beliefs. While attending one convention, Daybell was approached by a blonde-haired, blue-eyed fan named Lori Vallow. The two hit it off and started having an affair. Both were married, but soon both their spouses would be dead, as would Lori's children, JJ and Tylee. Chad and Lori then quickly got married in Hawaii. Eventually, people in their lives caught on to what was happening. There was an intense investigation and search for the missing children. They were found buried in Chad's backyard. Then the body of Chad's wife was exhumed. What followed were 2 trials and the convictions of Chad and Lori for the murders of JJ, Tylee, and Chad's wife, Tammy. Lori is now in Arizona awaiting another murder trial for the shooting death of husband number 4, Charles Vallow, in a case where there are still lingering questions.
So much death and destruction in all of this. And when you take a step back and think about how sick it all really was. But the question is, and this is the one that really gets to the heart of the whole case, it's about the children, JJ and Tylee, Lori's children. I want you to take a listen to John Pryor, who represented the Doomsday Prophet, Chad Daybell. In his closing argument, raised something that really took a moment, made me think for a second. Take a listen.
Alex Cox murdered Tylee Ryan. Lori Vallow knew what was going on because her beloved little brother, or beloved big brother, could be tagged for the murder of Charles Vallow, and those 2 kids saw it. And Alex Cox took the body after he murdered Tylee Ryan. He took it out somewhere and he burned the body.
This is interesting. This is because Lori has been charged with the murder of her husband, Charles, who was actually shot by her brother, Alex. But the family was there. The kids were there when all this happened, which brings me to my first question of our investigation tonight. It's about motive. Did Lori murder her children because they were witnesses? Witnesses to the murder of Charles Vallow by Uncle Alex. Joining me to discuss all of this, get to the bottom of it, Lori Vallow, Daybell's uncle and co-host of the podcast, Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings, Rex Connor is with us. Also joining us, retired police commander, religious cult expert, and host of the podcast, Profiling Evil, and the author of the book, Deceived, Mike King is with us. Great to see you both tonight. You know, John Pryor made me think here for more than a moment on this, because the whole house of cards comes down. Tylee is a teenager, and if they witnessed all of this, could that be part of the motive here? What are your initial thoughts on this, Rex?
I think that's as reasonable as any other explanation of why they did it, and it could have been a combination of factors, but we really don't have all the answers. We don't have all the details of who shot. Did Lori get one of the shots in? Did they check for gunshot residue on either of their hands? There are just so many questions left unanswered. I think yours is a very valid question, and that is a valid motive for all the motive, or at least part of it.
Let's take a listen, because Tylee, again, a teenager, was interviewed by police afterwards, and here's part of what she said.
My uncle, I think, grabbed him and kind of took him back so he couldn't like do anything.
You saw your stepdad like take a step back?
Take a step back, because he was really close to begin with, and then and so my mom said to go with JJ, and so I ran out the door, and then I kind of just stood there with my little brother. He was in the front seat of the car, and so I just kind of opened the door and just stood there, and like, he was trying to get out, and I was like, no, we have to stay. Eventually, my mom came out, and then we left from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, like, because I heard a noise, which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the basement I was in there, it sounded like someone, like, took it and hit it really hard against the floor. And then we went to Burger King because my little brother wanted breakfast.
And speaking of that breakfast, you look here, there she is pulling up to the drive-thru with the kids in tow. This is at 7:54. This is after the shooting. 911 not called until 8:36. Mike King trying to put together all the pieces here. Does it sound like a potential viable motive behind the murder of her children, that the first of these killings, which is Charles Vallow, they're there for all of it? No audio, Mike. Are you muted? Might be on our end. You know what we'll do? I want you to listen to this as well, folks. This is David Warwick, who testified and describes, because he's in Idaho the weekend that we believe JJ was murdered and what was going on inside the house. Take a listen to him describing what Lori's telling him.
I just went to say goodbye to Lori and JJ. And Lori was in the kitchen, and she was a little dramatic. She explained that he climbed up on the cabinets in the fridge and got on top of the upper cabinets. She had a picture of Christ on the upper cabinet, and he said that he went up there and pushed that down. And I just said, well, we're leaving. I'd like to say goodbye to JJ. And she said, oh, he was out of control. And I had to have Alex come and get him.
So this is really the battle here, trying to understand why, right? So Rex Connor's still with us, Lori Vallow's uncle. Rex, on the one hand, they potential witnesses in the shooting death of Charles Vallow. And then on the other hand, you've got Lori in this state of mind describing JJ climbing all over the place, knocking over a picture of Jesus, and perhaps in her mind believes that JJ is somehow possessed and not just being a child like he is. What are your thoughts about the balance between those two things going on at once? Because on the one hand, cold-blooded killer, you get rid of the witnesses. On the other hand, you have someone who believes perhaps that her own children are possessed.
Yeah, and you put it in the context of the rest of the story, and it's like, Vinnie, probably like any crime you have covered, you have evil people perpetrating evil and making crap up every step of the way to try to get other people to buy in their delusions. None of that fits together well, does it? And the fact that David Warwick saw JJ asleep on Alex's shoulder the night before, and then the next morning they're staying in the house and JJ was out of control. They didn't hear anything about it, and Lori got this all taken care of, and Alex got to Kays, who lives in Louisiana. It just doesn't fit together.
It absolutely does not fit. And, you know, it takes you to, you know, what's going on in her mind. And she's the only one that actually knows what she really believes. And it's difficult to ascertain because of the way the relationship developed with Chad, what she is saying to Charles, what she's saying to other people. But at the end of the day, if you just look at the actions themselves, it's a series of murders that result in her being, I don't I hate saying this, but unburdened by a husband, unburdened by children, and hanging out in Hawaii with her brand new husband and a big bag of money. And I think we've got Mike King joining us by phone right now. Mike, let me ask you, do you think it's all about these children being witnesses to the shooting death of Charles Vallow?
You know, Vinnie, I really think that's a possibility, but whether it reaches into the more probable idea, I'm still struggling a little with. And I apologize to you and all your viewers for having problems with my video here. But here's the thing that keeps bugging me on this thing, Vinnie, and that is if Tylee, for instance, had truly witnessed the homicide, it's clear she witnessed the fighting that was going on before that and the arguing that was going on. But that would increase Lori's risk bringing her back to the scene after to talk with police. And I think we would have seen a more orchestrated discussion. I think she's really telling the truth when she gets emotional and talks about going out to the car with JJ, opening the door, and that's when you see her really start to shake up a little bit, and she hears that gunshot go off. So I kind of pushed myself back away from the idea that she saw the homicide, but she certainly knew that gun went off. What happened in between maybe is a little fuzzier for her. And on your question you've been talking with Rex about here right now, I think this was all a money train for her, that she realized, number one, that the kids created burdens in her life, especially JJ, and that just is so tragic to say. But there was financial gain by doing this. Otherwise, she wouldn't have kept it secret that those kids were gone for so long, because she was still getting income out of that. And every time someone died around her, she got more income and more power and control. Whether she wants to lean on her religious beliefs and the zealot nature that she was taking things or not, she was getting financial gain.
All right, Mike King, Rex Connor staying with us. Coming up next, what is the state of Lori's mental health?
The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom."
Mr. Jeffrey, tell me what happened that night.
Killed my wife, I guess. I don't remember none of that.
You don't remember the fight with Lisa?
How many times did you hit her? 5.
You don't remember what her dead body looked like laying out there in front of you?
Not at all.
If you were me, would you believe you?
Interview with a Killer. Sunday, 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Upon reading it, it was almost as if the defense was saying, we don't really think she's Rule 11 by the standards that we use in Arizona for determining competency to go forward and assist in defense. But because she had a prior competency hearing in Idaho and there were some issues with how the defendant views the case, they thought it was an abundance of caution to ask for a Rule 11. Shortly thereafter, I granted it, and the defense moved to withdraw, and new counsel was appointed. When new counsel was appointed, they filed a motion to withdraw the Rule 11 evaluation, and the state has objected. Is that a fair assessment, Ms. Hicks?
Yeah.
Further, it may be an issue for today or it may not. The defendant filed her motion to represent herself. What's the status of that?
I think she wants to go forward on that.
What a mess in Arizona. Lori Daybell's next murder trial for the murder of her husband, number 4, Charles Vallow, wants to represent herself. Now, we'll hear a lot from her at that trial if she's representing herself. Now, we have heard some from her through the years. Not a ton, but we have heard from her. She has spoken, whether it's on phone calls and in other settings. So why don't we take a listen back to Lori Daybell through the years.
We just moved in here.
Good.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
I'm sorry?
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
Like, hi, neighbor, sorry.
He would just swing it backwards at me, not frontwards.
Okay, yeah.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea for Tyler to get out of the house.
Probably not the...
I mean, he played semi-pro when he was young.
Yeah.
But,
It's very weird. I've had to move around a lot. One of my brothers is trying to kill me. Not the brother that lives here, obviously. He's kind of my protector. My other brother was in with my husband who was trying to kill me for my $2 million life insurance costs. So I don't tell people the truth about where we are and what we're doing because of those reasons. So I look like a suspect, but I am a good person. Raised all of my kids. I've done everything that I'm supposed to do in life. But everyone is causing me trouble right now.
Hello?
Are you okay?
I'm searching property.
The house right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do? Pray.
What?
What do you want me
Yeah,
to
pray.
Kylie is free now from all the pains of her life. The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I love you. And I know you loved me every minute of my life." JJ, Joshua Jackson, was an adult spirit. And he was very, very tall when he put his arm around me. My eternal friend, Tammy Daybell, has visited me on several occasions. She came to bring me peace and comfort. And I know that she is extremely busy helping her family, especially her children and grandchildren. And I have a great love for Tammy.
So there you see sort of the spectrum of Lori Daybell through the years. Starts with the shooting death of her husband, Charles. She's very smiley during all of that, and then finishes there after her conviction. Now, she wants to represent herself, right? So you've got to be competent to stand trial. You have to be competent to represent yourself, which brings me to my next question in our investigation, and it's about what's going on upstairs. What is the state of Lori's mental health? Is this someone who is like tuned in to reality? Back with us, Lori Vallow Daybell's uncle, Rex Connor, and via phone, retired police commander Mike King. All right, Rex, what's your assessment of Lori? Because you knew her before any of this, before the shooting death of Charles, before many of the statements that she's made through the years that the world has gotten to know her. What are your thoughts about what's going on between the years?
Well, the truth is I don't know, and my thoughts have changed recently. I liked believing she was caught up in a cocoon and just was believing her own dribble that she talked about. Okay, and she got a diagnosis like that she has. I can't remember the technical name of it. Sorry about that. But she's in this delusion. I believe now, after hearing the progress that you just pointed out, Vinnie, and hearing other different scenarios she's in, she's just like any other evil liar, saying what she needs to say in the situation to manipulate the person to whom she's speaking. Okay, she's not lost in a delusion. I think she is delusional. I think she is mentally ill. But the underlying to those diagnoses that we put on people, and good people put them on her, I'm not saying the diagnoses are wrong, but she's evil. She's making evil choices. She's going to continue making evil choices. And that's the bottom line. She's in her right state of mind and can read the situation and lie to her supposed benefit in any situation.
You know, you talk about manipulation and being able to control people. My guess is through the years, she's relied in part on her appearance and her looks and her ability to smile a certain way. Mike King, those are things that I believe someone might believe you could put in front of a jury and convince them of what your beliefs are, what your defense is. What are your thoughts about the state of Lori's mental health here?
You know, I'm no psychologist, Vinny, but I've watched enough murder suspects and then murder defendants who have tried to do this. So some of them flashbacks of Ted Bundy proposing to a woman on the stand. I mean, this is just crazy when these people choose to defend themselves. And it speaks to the narcissism that's going on, her ability to, over her lifetime, to manipulate people through her charismatic approach and her batting of her eyes. And so I go back to this idea, is it some kind of exaggerated self-confidence where she really thinks she's the smartest person in the world? Does it lean a little toward this religiosity that's going on in her mind and the fact that she may have some real heavy-duty mental illness in there, but she knew what was right and wrong, and she knew that killing children was against the law. And so I find myself just really bouncing back for that. And I think it's more about a desire for control and maybe a fear of being exposed by an attorney missing something that they would stick out on. But this grandiosity and this publicity seeking, I don't know, it just all points back to who she is from the onset.
Mike King, Rex Connor, thank you both so much. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the Doomsday couple. It's the story of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed married woman who became infatuated with a former grave digger. And together, they committed the ultimate betrayals. Here's the story. They are known as the Doomsday couple, Chad and Lori Daybell, leading a group of preppers preparing for the end times. But Lori and Chad are accused of much more than leading a cult. They have been implicated in a string of murders. Lori was convicted of murdering her children, JJ and Tylee, and Chad's first wife, Tammy. She is also getting ready for her trial for the murder of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. But before the murders, Lori was considered a loving wife and mother by her family. What changed in her life? Where did the obsession with zombies and cult leader Chad Daybell come from? It's hard to believe that this actually happened, but it did. 2 children dead, 2 spouses dead, and just a trail of lies and betrayals. So here we are at her trial, and Lori Vallow is convicted and does not testify in her own defense, but then makes a statement at the end of the case during the sentencing. Take a listen.
I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born. This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home. And I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future. So ultimately, I did agree to go back to my body.
So much of this, Doomsday preppers preparing for the end times. She hooks up with Chad Daybell. He's making these prophecies and these predictions, which, by the way, didn't come true. He was predicting the end of the world, and I think it was the summer of 2020. Didn't happen. Pretty close, though, with COVID, right? But did not happen. And it gets to the heart of it's always like, why is this happening? How could this happen? And that brings me to our next question about her. Was Lori driven by her religious beliefs? Is that what happened here? Was it her belief set, which became distorted clearly, but was that what drove all of her conduct, all of her behavior? Joining us to help get to the bottom of it, host of the Mormon Stories podcast and psychology PhD, John DeLynn, and co-host of the podcast, Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings, and co-author of the book, Lori's Lies and Family Ties, Lori Vallow Daybell's brother, Adam Cox. Thank you both for being here. Adam, I'll begin with you. You knew her growing up, and how this all transformed. Do you think she was driven by her religious beliefs?
Well, obviously, for 45 years of her life, she was completely different than she is now. And her beliefs then were just the teachings of the LDS Church. But when she met Chad and started listening to Julie Rowe podcast and all these extra things that started jumping on board, she went further and further with that. And soon, little by little, by listening to all these podcasts and talking to these people, they got into her head, and she changed what she used to believe to this new whatever religion that Chad was preaching, and she jumped on board with it.
Let's take a listen. John, I want you to take a listen to this call. It's between Lori and her friend and one of her co-preppers, Melanie Gibb. I think it gives us a little more insight to hear Lori in her own words.
Darkness is knocking on the door all the time because that's the way dark works with the light. And I promise you that I have done nothing wrong in this case, but sometimes you have to hide in the cavity of a rock for your own life safety. And that's what the Lord requires of you sometimes. And that's how it is. And I'm sorry that's how it is, because there is a lot of darkness on the earth. And I did exactly what I felt the Lord was instructing me to do. And I appreciate you and I love you. And I would never do anything to harm you. And you can have all of this confirmed to you by the Lord.
I don't know what else to say.
Stand Christ when he comes again, and he's coming soon, and we will all stand there, and you will know at that point that he has supported me and has supported me the whole time, and I have not been deceived.
Okay, John DeLynn, I'm interested in your take on this. What are you hearing? What are your thoughts about what is driving Lori Daybell? Is it her true religious beliefs?
I guess I have to start with the disclaimer that most Mormons don't kill their spouses or children. And I also will agree with the previous guests that she's clearly in many ways mentally ill, and I would say with clear personality disorders. But the problem is the founder of the Mormon Church, of the Mormon religion, Joseph Smith, laid down so many doctrinal teachings that are still believed to this day and are core to Lori and Chad's theology. That Jesus is coming soon, that's from the New Testament. That God chooses special people, the Davidic servant or the one mighty and strong, that's in the Old Testament in Isaiah. Mormon, book publishers have published that for years, that prayer is talking with God and Jesus, just like you heard her say in that phone conversation. Joseph Smith talked with God and Jesus, and Mormons are taught that they can too. Mormon is a visionary church, and so Mormons believe that they can have visions and that their visions come from God, that their feelings can be from the Holy Ghost. And so if you have feelings like you're supposed to kill someone or sleep with someone else's spouse, you even have Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, who believed that he should sleep with other men's wives. That's not made up. And that's the leader and the founder of the religion. We even have in Mormon theology that in the Book of Mormon, in one of the very first pages of the Book of Mormon, we have God telling one of Mormon's founding prophets, Nephi, that he needs to cut the head off of someone who he thinks is bad. And he gets those feelings from what he believes is the Holy Ghost. Mormons also believe that the dead spirits that are evil can possess your body, and that you can speak with dead people who are good spirits. And then finally, the church has believed for a long, long time that lying and even murder isn't necessarily wrong, nor is polygamy if God tells you to do it. So I understand why mainstream Mormons want to distance their church from Chad and Lori, and the average Mormon doesn't behave this way. But if you just take the secret ingredients of someone who's mentally ill, somebody who's in a midlife crisis, somebody who's financially desperate, and then you add to that these theological ingredients, these will not be the last Mormon murderers who based their murders or their adultery on Mormon theology and doctrine and history.
Let me ask you, Adam, before the transformation, in her first 45 years, her level of interest and dedication to religion, and I want to put a number scale on it just to have some context here, like 0 to 10, how religious was she?
Well, as she was younger, probably not as much, but as she got older and older and older, it went from like a 5 to probably a 8 or something like that.
And in your family growing up, how significant a part of this was it for day-to-day life for you, your siblings, your parents?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the church goes, I mean, Lori had callings all the time. She was doing what she was supposed to be doing at church, keeping the commandments, doing everything that you should be doing. And that's what we were raised to be good people. And we were raised to keep the commandments and do all the things and follow Jesus. So, I obviously I disagree with whoever the guy is that's on, but he says some things that just aren't true about the Mormon Church. But
well, you can
everybody
respond.
Can have their own opinion.
You can respond.
Yeah, just
Adam.
Yeah, I mean. I've been going to church my whole life. I've never heard anybody in our church say that dead spirits can jump into other people's bodies. That's not right. I've never heard that before.
So if you read in the New Testament, you read an account of Jesus. By the way, Mormons believe in the New Testament, the Bible. You have an account of a man coming to Jesus who's possessed by evil spirits.
So do all Christians.
Yeah, but Mormons are Christians. So that's a teaching that Mormons have. Right. Mormons also believe if you go to the Mormon temple ceremony.
Why did you say Mormons? Why didn't you say just
temples,
Christians?
Let me just clarify then. In the Mormon temple, Satan is there. And Peter, James, and John raise their hands to the square and cast Satan out of the garden. And if you just go to LDS.org or churchofjesuschrist.org, you can see demonic possession there on the church website as a doctrine of the church. And one of the features or the benefits of having the Mormon priesthood is the ability to cast out evil spirits. I was taught this growing up. I was a Mormon for 45 years, and I was taught, even by my mission president on my mission, that you could cast out evil spirits with the priesthood by raising your arm to the square and casting them out, just like Jesus did with the evil spirits, casting them out into the pigs. That's absolutely core Mormon doctrine, and I think it's weird you never heard or learned about it, honestly.
No, I know about that, but from what you're saying is you're saying Mormons are different than other Christians. I've seen other Christian churches do the exact same thing.
I didn't say that.
I know, but you're pushing to Mormons when you should just say Christians. Don't say Mormons. Say Christians, because you said you keep bringing up the Bible. Christians believe in the Bible, so use the word Christian. Don't use the word Mormon.
I think Mormons teach it at a more literal level, and a more specific level than mainstream Christians. I think demonic possession. If you look at that book that was under Lori Vallow's knee while she was at the poolside when she first was arrested, it's a book called Visions of Glory. That was the most sold book in Utah the year of the murders and the year after the murders. That book is all about demonic possessions, and it's one of the most popular books ever in the history of Mormonism in the past few years. Can you explain why tens of thousands of Mormons are buying Visions of Glory and reading it and sharing it? It's not because this is some isolated, fringe group.
And I can only tell you this: I've never read it. I've never read that book. There's probably millions of Mormons who have not read that book. So People can read whatever books they want to read and come up with whatever they want to come up with. It's not part of the church. The church isn't selling the book.
Can you explain to me why this book, Visions of Glory, was one of the top-selling books in Mormonism for 2 years running in the state of Utah? Can you explain that to me?
I'm just going to jump in here.
I don't know.
Adam, I'll give you the last. Okay. I'll give you the last word, Adam. And obviously this is part of the story, and I understand both positions that you have here. And Adam, I'll just give you the final word, and we appreciate both of you.
Well, from what my perspective is, you can be Christian and you could go to any church you want. But once you snap at a certain point, and you start taking your own beliefs and starting, to change verses and making things the way you want them to be, like which Lori and Chad did, it really has nothing to do with the teachings of our church and what we believe in. So I hate that, people like push all this stuff on the Mormon religion and LDS and all that. Lori and Chad went AWOL, way AWOL. So we just don't believe in the things that Lori and Chad preach about, the light and dark and all that stuff.
Gotcha. Big thanks to John DeLynn. Adam's going to stay with us. When we come back, we are going to take a look at, did Charles Vallow fear for his life?
Yesterday was a threat to kill me. Okay. What did she say yesterday? She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers."
I'm a judge. I loved being on the bench. I want viewers to see that, to know what it's like to love being in a courtroom and to love watching what happens in a courtroom.
This is a case where I think you can believe either side based on the evidence being presented.
Here at Court TV, we can show you everything. And I hope at the end of the day, they've learned a little something about what it takes to try a case and why it's so important that it's done well.
Long story. She's had kind of a break from reality. She thinks you're LDS?
Yes.
She thinks she's married to Moroni in the past. You think she's what? Married to Moroni, top of the temple.
That's Charles Vallow speaking with police beforehand, discussing the mental health of his wife. She believes she's Moroni, that she's married to Moroni, that Charles wasn't alive anymore. He could see there was something going on with Lori. I don't know to what extent he understood it. But let's take a look, because there was more than one incident. But here he is back on body cam describing some threats that Lori had made.
She's lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it. We're LDS. She thinks she's a resurrected being and a God, and remember the 144,000. She's come. Jesus is coming next year. And two others threatened me, murder me, kill me. She threatened to murder you? Yes. And she said, how did she do that? My bishop right there is in the car. He was on the phone with me today, when she said, "I will have you destroyed." That's what she said there. Okay, that's not a threat to kill you. Yesterday was a threat to kill me. Okay. What did she say yesterday? She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers."
So Charles is aware something's going on, and that brings me to my next question. Be very relevant in the upcoming trial. Did Charles Vallow fear for his life? He understood that something was wrong, the talk of murder, but was he in actual fear for his life? Did he think that it could happen? He ends up shot and killed by Lori's brother, Alex Cox. Joining me now, co-hosts of the podcast, Tylee and JJ's Silver Linings, and the authors of the book, Lori's Lies and Family Ties, Lori Vallow Daybell's uncle, Rex Connor, and her brother, Adam Cox. Okay. What do you think, Rex? Do you think that Charles was in actual fear that this could happen, that his life could be taken?
Well, I'm going to defer to Adam to answer that, but I will say that speaking for all of the rest of us, we knew Lori was off. Charles had shared some of her in email, her teachings. Those are very public. So we knew she was into something really weird, but none of the rest of us, I don't know about Charles, Adam will address that, but none of the rest of us thought it could go that far. It didn't even enter our minds, even though she said she could murder him, that would actually happen.
Yeah, something else happened, Adam, though. He changed his life insurance policy beneficiary, and it was no longer your sister. It was his sister. What are your thoughts about what Charles is thinking? Like, it's obvious from these videos from police that he knows something is going on with Lori. Do you think he was in actual fear for his life?
It's hard to say. He probably was a little bit scared, but deep down inside, you just, if Lori was been talking like this for a while, I guess that Chad told Lori that Charles wasn't Charles anymore, that some guy named Ned something was a zombie inside of his body. And so with that being said, Lori's like, well, that's not even Charles anymore. But I think when she was talking to Charles, you would hear her say, I'm a resurrected being. And she told me in the kitchen, one time, the last time she talked to me, that if you shoot a bullet at me, it will just go through me. Nothing will happen. I don't ever have to eat again. So those kinds of things are just crazy. And so you just I guess when crazy person's talking to you, you kind of deal with it like, okay, they're nuts, but you don't really think that anything that they're going to say is actually going to come true. I remember the last time that me and Charles were texting, and he was going to pick up JJ at Lori's house when Alex was there, and he texted me early in the morning. He goes, Alex's truck is here. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is Alex spending the night there? Because I was supposed to visit Alex and spend time with him, and he avoided me the whole time I was there. He never answered any of my texts. I said, something feels off. Be careful. That's all I said, because at that point, I'm like, that's just so weird that happened. And then I never heard from him again. So I don't know if if he was really scared. I don't think he would have went to the house to pick up JJ. So what makes sense to me is I don't think he would think that anything really bad was going to happen to him. And
it seems to me that did he want Lori just to get better and to try to patch things up? Is that where he was? We have about 20 seconds here.
I think his original thought was that, but then I think he got to a point where he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to get divorced. I'm going to start dating. I'm going to, share custody with JJ. And I think he got to that point right before that happened.
All right. Well, Rex Connor, Adam Cox, it's always great to speak with you, to share your family's tragedy is really what it is, but the insight is very important, and we really do appreciate it. Thanks so much. Charles Vallow loved his wife, Lori, but the woman he loved disappeared. She was replaced by a delusional narcissist who chased a former gravedigger all the way to life in prison. She betrayed her husband and tragically betrayed her children. In the end, really though, there's no one to blame except those who are responsible. Chad and Lori Daybell. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.